Going to go ahead and deploy some DNS zones records and record configurations on Azure. So Azure, as we've talked about, supports the notion of essentially being an authoritative DNS server for you. You can host any DNS data in here, and if your apps run on Azure, then it makes a really good sense to actually have all your DNS stored there as well. So let's look at how we create DNS records in Azure. We're going to add a new DNS server from the marketplace. So we're just going to type DNS in the marketplace, and we're going to choose a DNS zone. Now, there's a piece to this which we're not going to go through, which is if you have or you own a DNS zone. So let's say I own a zone called CoreyAzureClass.com. I would have bought that zone from a name authority, Network Solutions, or GoDaddy, or any one of those guys that allow you to register DNS names. There's 100 of them out there. And they're going to initially have the records for that zone. What I need to do is on their platform is delegate that zone to Azure. Now, we're not going to go through how to do that process outside the scope of Azure, but in order for this DNS zone that I'm storing on Azure to be publicly resolvable, you've got to go through that step. So we'll talk a little more about that in just a second. So create a new zone here called this my DNS zones resource group. East US is fine. Click create, and this takes just a second to run through. It's a pretty quick, simple process. So we'll now go to our DNS zone, and you'll see that it has, the basics of a DNS server. Now, right here on top, we have the name servers. The name servers are the actual Azure-based DNS servers that contain this information. So if I were, for example, on Network Solutions, and I wanted to delegate authority of this zone, CoreyAzureClass.com, to Azure, I'd simply add those 4 servers as the name server records through Network Solutions admin UI. And if you've ever set up a publicly resolvable DNS, then you've been through this process. It's fairly simple and straightforward. Once that's done, it's given time to replicate. Then now that name becomes publicly resolvable. So we're going to create a new record set. I'm going to call this one for my web server www, and we're going to put an IP address in there of 2.3.4.5. I'm just going to make up an IP address for now. And so that's how easy it is to do basic DNS administration. I can now open the properties of this. I can modify it. I can add a second address to create a record set. Save it. And I can create other record types. For example, not just a name record, an A record. I can do a CNAME. I can do a mail server record, a service record, a text record, or a pointer record. There's a number of different record types that are supported. Every single DNS record type is not supported in Azure DNS, so you just need to be aware of that and understand what types are actually available. And I just created one I didn't mean to create, so we'll delete it. This is how easy it is to delete. Now we can do the exact same thing through PowerShell. And there's a series of PowerShell commands. So just doing *Azure RM *DNS. So all the Azure RM commandlets that have DNS in it. And you can see that we've got a couple here. For example, new DNS record config, new DNS record set, new DNS record zone, remove, and also some modify, and then testing the availability of DNS. So I can add a new record. So new record set. The name is going to be, let's do the FTP. The zone name is going to be CoreyAzureClass.com. The resource group name, I forget what I call the resource group, so let me just double check that. DNS zones. Record type, A record. And then the DNS records themselves. And so the DNS records that I'm going to add are the actual IP addresses that are going to be included. And so this is simply a list of IPs. Now, what this DNS records parameter is expecting in PowerShell is what's called a DNS record config, this option right here. So you can pre-create the config in a variable, or you can actually feed it directly into the command, which is what I'm going to do. And this is just basic PowerShell. New DNS record config, IPv4, and then the address that is going to be included. Which is just put right in here. We'll just make an address. And the TTL will just take a TTL of, let's do a TTL of 100. Missed that parameter. And so now we've got that new record created. We can come back in here, just refresh our zone, and you'll see that I've now got this FTP record created. So it's real simple to do it via the UI. It's all real simple, also real simple to do it via PowerShell. You can now test that DNS using the built-in test DNS server. Actually, it's test. Actually, no, it's resolve. My mistake. So resolve DNS name. And we're just, the thing I'm going to specify is the server. So what I want to do is pick one of the Azure DNS servers I'm going to use. So we'll use ns1-07.azure-dns.com. The name is www.coreazureclass.com. And you can see that it goes out and queries and returns both the DNS records for that name. And again, if I didn't want to include the server, I'm only including the server because this is not a real DNS name that I've publicly registered anywhere. So it doesn't exist on the World Wide Web. It's not resolvable. If I wanted to make this resolvable so I could just, query it, do what you would consider an NS lookup, then I just need to buy that domain name, which I'm not going to do. And then within the name authority that I bought the domain from, such as Network Solutions, for example, input those delegation records, those name server records that Azure provides once the zone is created. So that's it. That's how you create and manage a DNS zone in Azure.